Sitting in a room full of people talking about a book you have never read yet could possibly be one of the scariest experiences for a 15-year-old on a random Monday. Alright, now picture this. It's sophomore year, and your English teacher, Mr. White, he's going over the class activities for the day, but all you hear is random mumbling as you tune it out and think about something way more interesting to the male teenage brain, like playing Minecraft when you get home.
You had a bow and arrow, shut the fuck up.
Now, the important part of this, surprisingly, is not Minecraft, but what the teacher was saying. You see, as I was daydreaming of cave bases and whatever BS my friends were up to on the server, my teacher was laying out the extremely important details of our class debate and subsequent final essay. Now, everyone else in the class had been reading this book called The Odyssey, a book about Odysseus, some guy in ancient Greece that did things. Honestly, this class happened so long ago, I can't even remember what my teacher looked like, hence Walter White. Anyways, the point is, this would be the first time that we would get all of our desks into a big circle around the room and talk about the book. The teacher would be like a mediator or judge. They'll grade us on how much we participate and would take points off if we had to interrupt and if you had to change the topic or keep the conversation going if no one else was talking. And this happened all the time. It was actually really awkward. Little did I know how much these long and awkward group conversations would affect me as a student for the next 3 or so years. My sophomore year high school English class tested my teamwork, speaking, writing, reading skills, and probably a bunch of other stuff like no other class. I mean, the constant class talks, group assignments, writing tests, all in the same book really kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to become a smarter, more effective student in my English class after. I mean, this entire class held some of the most important literacy events in my life. Now, you might be wondering, hey Chris, what does a literacy event even mean? Are you an idiot? Why would you say some random word and not define? Shut up, alright? Shut up and let me tell you what's up. A literacy event, in simple terms, is just an important part of your academic career that can help you develop your skills as a student. It's simple. Anyways, back to the story. The first talking circle we had was a textbook definition of a disaster for me. I, an incredible procrastinator and generally lazy person, put no time into reading the required book. So, I sat there in my seat pushed up against the wall, suffocated, both metaphorically and literally. I mean, the classroom's a lot smaller than you'd think. I had this sinking feeling in my chest and a slight need to pee, which just made me feel more queasy about the whole ordeal. Obviously, this ended terribly, and I had an F in the class until our next discussion. And as corny as it sounds, this whole situation caused a lot of self-reflection. I mean, our teacher, although strict, cared a lot about our education, and he definitely picked me out from the rest of the class. After our first discussion, he pulled me aside and asked about my future in my class and how well I thought it would perform. Honestly, at the time, I just sort of ignored it and went on with my day like nothing had happened, but that F loomed over me. My mom was pissed, and after the vicious chewing out I had endured from her, I thought about what my teacher said. It's kind of hard to explain the effect Mr. White had on us 15-year-olds. Maybe it's just me, but I started to look up to Mr. White. He listened to cool music, played video games, even streamed Fortnite on Twitch, which is pretty cool. I don't know, it was cool to 15-year-old me, I guess. And so after I saw my middle-aged English teacher play Fortnite to a bunch of underclassmen in high school, and yes, this is actually what happened, I decided that my embarrassing attempts at getting an A in the class discussion was way more embarrassing because it was in front of my cool professor. This was the turning point, a literacy event, if you will. And over the next few weeks, I decided to really lock in on my classes and read that damn book. Mr. White became a bit of a role model over this time and really became a literary sponsor. Now, a literary sponsor is really anything that helps you in your literacy work, writing, reading, speaking, the whole 9 yards. That also benefits from helping you. Now, this quote might help explain it. Sponsors are any agents who enable, support, teach, model literacy, and gain advantage by it in some way. In this specific case, I gained tips and wisdom about reading our class book and how to discuss it, and he gained another passing student to add to his record. And I needed this. I needed his wisdom and overall approval just to feel confident enough in class to take on the challenge of ace English language. One of my biggest boosts in confidence in the class didn't even come from those circles. It was something different. A quick side tangent, in between those talking circles, we would also have random assignments and group projects. We had a group project, and the gist of it was making a business in a pretend town and explaining to the whole townspeople, our other classmates, how it would help solve problems in the community. We chose an office building and had to present why it would benefit everyone. At this point in time, I was still pretty socially awkward, but I really came to my own here. Every random stupid question a kid asked me, I was able to quickly come up with an answer on the fly and dodge that shit like it was nothing. I did this so well that Mr. White stopped our whole presentation just to comment on it. I remember he said something about being the right example of what to do in the situation and how well my conversation and presentation skills. Oh, wow. I remember he said something about thinking quick on my feet and talking well. I don't know. This was years ago. The point is that after about 5 class conversations on the Odyssey up to this point, I was less nervous about speaking in front of the class, and I could present myself in a more confident manner. This was a major literacy event for me, obviously, and I still remember this moment all the way up to today, whenever I need to come up with something on the spot for something in class, or anything in general. Speaking of major literacy events, the most anticipated one was just a week after this project.
Now is my time. Now is my time.
This was it. Chiefs versus Eagles, the last game before the Super Bowl or something, I don't know. And I went into the circle knowing damn well I would get that A. And just for some better context, I had to really suck to the whole taking this book seriously thing, in ways that worked for me at least. Mr. White had given me some tips about the book and mentioned an audio version online. The only problem is that I get bored of reading and I could barely pay attention to the audiobook either. But after some experimenting and too much free time, I found a way to focus on both at the same time. I discovered that if I read the book and listened to the audio, I could pay attention for way longer. Now, yes, I know that's a groundbreaking discovery, but at the time, my only focus was going into that final class discussion and cook up like I'm Ramsay. The final talk took up about half of our grade, and I murdered the shit out of it. It was an easy A to say the least, but I was in for a rude awakening. I figured out how to listen. I even learned how to talk like I'm not in the middle of having a stroke when presenting. However, the only thing that I didn't learn would end up biting me in the ass so hard I would still have the metaphorical bite mark on my cheeks till this day. Our final assignment involving this book was that dreaded essay that I mentioned earlier, hence the foreshadowing. We would write a 2-page essay answering one of 4 questions on the board. The first day you would write the draft, and the second you would write the final essay. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise, but I suck at writing. Like, to the point that on day 1, I had about a half a page of a draft. The next day, I, feeling like a hot air balloon that caught fire, sat down and prepared for the biggest display of stupidity I've ever shown at that time. I just sort of bullshitted my way through the essay and took the massive loss and turned it in. Now, of course I failed, but this wasn't the end of the world. The biggest reason I could say this moment in this class was a major event for me in my literary career is because of something I learned from my college English class just weeks ago. I read an interesting article about writing and the problems writers face. It's called Shitty First Drafts. And yeah, that's a legit article, and we read it in my English class in college. Anyways, it has a quote that I always think about now whenever I'm writing, even when I wrote this. Almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere, start by getting anything down on paper. It's a pretty simple statement, but it gives my shitty essay more power. Like, I think about writing and I freak out because I don't know what to write and how I'm gonna screw this essay up like I did years ago, and then I remember that quote and realize I should just let go. I should just pour all my thoughts onto some paper and pick whatever good parts I can find and go from there. If I had known about this quote, and even though it's a pretty simple concept, in hindsight, I would have done much better on that essay. I then realized while writing this that if it wasn't for this experience I had, I wouldn't be the student I am today. If it wasn't for learning how to make myself focus on reading a book because of how embarrassed I was from a sloppy dialogue, taking part in those class conversations and bettering my conversation and presentation skills, and remembering the next embarrassing performance and connecting it to something I learned recently, I wouldn't be able to write anything or even really present that well. I really internalized those experiences, and I'm glad I was able to relive them while writing this. The original talk that he had that I completely skimped out on because I was too focused on other stuff, the first circle, the conversation we had, then the chewing out for my mother, which was just great. The subsequent group project that we had and my growing in confidence learning from my teacher how to read this big-ass book and not look like an idiot in front of everyone else when talking in those debate circles, and then doing so well on my final conversation circle that I would be just fine doing the essay. Little did I realize at the time that my essay skills actually sucked, and I didn't really know how to write a first draft, or really anything. At least within a certain time window. I couldn't really handle the pressure, I guess. But now knowing that just making a first draft involves throwing whatever bullshit you want onto a screen and picking out the parts that are actually good and trying to put it together into a full essay makes it a whole lot easier to write. I mean, I did that for this, obviously. In all, I'm just a better writer now because of it. I know how to organize myself, I know how to do it in a timely manner, and now every time I write, I think about those events, those times, and the new things that I learned recently. Anyways, thank you for watching. My name is Chris, and I don't know, have a good day or something.
Artificial death in the west, east, pyramids on deck, shine, wet hair on the neck, breathe, she shoot, pussy through your chest, you die. Artificial death in the west, east, pyramids on deck, shine.